The first thing I saw after stepping off the military transport wasn't my hometown. It was the small silver wedding ring resting in my palm. 5 years, 5 birthdays, 5 anniversaries, 5 Christmas mornings spent under different skies, carrying one promise through every explosion and every sleepless night. She's waiting for me. That thought had kept me alive more times than I could count. I closed my hand around the ring until the metal pressed into my skin. I'm home. The words sounded strange after so many years. A taxi carried me through familiar streets that somehow looked smaller than I remembered. Children rode bicycles where military trucks once filled my mind. Coffee shops had replaced old stores. Trees had grown taller. Life had continued without asking whether I was ready to come back. My phone held no contacts except one number I still knew by heart. Olivia. I stared at her name for a long moment before locking the screen again. No, I wanted to see her face when she realized I had come back alive. I wanted that surprise. I imagined her running toward me, laughing, crying, holding me so tightly that 5 lost years would disappear inside one embrace. That dream stayed alive until the taxi stopped outside the Grand Sterling Hotel. Colorful lights covered the entrance. Luxury cars lined both sides of the street. Large banners hung above the doors. Carter Foundation Annual Charity Gala. I smiled. Her family always loved hosting events. Maybe fate wanted my return to become unforgettable. I paid the driver, picked up my old suitcase, straightened my jacket, and walked toward the entrance. Music floated through the open doors. Elegant dresses, expensive suits, champagne glasses, soft laughter. Everything felt so normal. Too normal. A security guard stepped in front of me before I reached the ballroom. Invitation? I don't have one. His polite smile faded. This is a private event. I'm here for Olivia Carter. He glanced at my worn boots, faded jacket, and weathered suitcase. Relationship? The answer came without thinking. I'm her husband. The words made me smile. His expression did not. Another guard walked over. The first one quietly whispered something into his ear. Both looked at me as if I had wandered into the wrong building. The second guard extended his hand. Sir, perhaps there's been some misunderstanding. I reached into my pocket instead. My military ID. He barely glanced at it before handing it back. Please wait here. Cold fingers wrapped around my hand for only a second. Not a greeting. Not respect. Only enough contact to stop me from walking farther. That handshake somehow hurt more than the scars on my body. Voices drifted from inside the ballroom. Someone tapped a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen. Applause echoed across the room. Curiosity pulled me closer. Standing near the doorway, I could finally see the stage. Then my heart stopped. Olivia. She looked beautiful. Her dark blue dress sparkled beneath the lights. Her hair rested neatly over one shoulder. She smiled exactly the way I remembered. Only, she wasn't standing alone. A man stood beside her with one arm comfortably around her waist. Tall, perfect suit, confident smile. He belonged there. Unlike me, the audience applauded again. Olivia accepted the microphone. My family has been blessed with wonderful people who supported us through difficult years. Her voice hadn't changed. Every word carried memories I wished I could still believe. She turned toward the man beside her. And none of this would have been possible without my husband. My breathing stopped. Nathan Brooks. The room exploded with applause. Nathan kissed her hand. Camera flashes filled the ballroom. My fingers slowly opened. The wedding ring slipped from my hand. It landed softly against my suitcase. Nobody noticed. Everyone watched them. I waited. Surely she would laugh. Correct herself. Tell everyone this was some kind of joke. Instead, she smiled wider. Nathan leaned closer, whispering something that made her laugh. That laugh once belonged to me. A young woman near the entrance noticed me staring. You know them? Words refused to come. My mouth stayed open. Nothing else. On the stage, Olivia continued thanking donors, business partners, and family friends. Not once did she mention me. Not even as someone who had once existed. The giant screen behind them displayed family photographs, vacation pictures, holiday dinners, business celebrations. Then one image caught my eye. A family portrait. The same portrait that used to hang above our fireplace. Only one thing had changed. I was gone. The empty space where I once stood had been edited so perfectly that nobody could tell another person had ever been there. Even photographs had forgotten me. A familiar ache settled inside my chest. Not sharp, not loud, just heavy, like carrying wet sand. One of the security guards approached again. "Sir," his voice softened after noticing the military uniform beneath my jacket. "If you need assistance, we can arrange transportation." Transportation, not recognition, not questions, not concern, only a polite way of removing the stranger standing near the door. "I'm leaving." He nodded with visible relief. "Thank you. Thank you." Funny, after surviving 5 years of war. The hardest battle lasted less than 5 minutes. Outside, cool night air brushed against my face. The music from inside sounded distant now, almost unreal. I opened my suitcase. Inside rested several small gifts wrapped years ago. A birthday necklace, an anniversary journal, a handmade snow globe I bought during deployment because Olivia once told me she loved winter. Every package carried a postal label. Returned to sender. One after another. Every letter I had written. Every postcard. Every promise. Returned. Unopened. The envelopes looked almost new, except for the military stamps and the words that quietly destroyed me. Recipient unavailable. I sat on a nearby bench. One envelope still carried my handwriting. To my beautiful wife. I smiled without happiness. "So, you never read any of them." Cars continued arriving behind me. Guests laughed while walking into the ballroom. Life celebrated only a few steps away. Mine had quietly ended. My phone vibrated. One unread military notification. Official deployment completed. "Welcome home, Sergeant Ethan Carter." Home. The words suddenly meant nothing. I slipped the wedding ring back in my pocket. It felt heavier now, not because the metal had changed, because the promise attached to it had died. I could have walked back inside. I could have shouted my name, demanded answers, exposed everything. Instead, I stood, picked up my suitcase, and walked away. If I had to beg someone to remember me, then I had already lost far more than a marriage. The taxi driver glanced at me through the mirror. Where to? My mother's house. The drive felt longer than the journey home from overseas. Streetlights blurred outside the window. Every familiar corner carried another memory. Olivia learning to drive. Our first apartment. The little bakery where we bought cinnamon rolls every Sunday. Pieces of another man's life. By the time the taxi stopped, midnight had almost arrived. My mother's porch light still burned, just like it always had. I climbed the steps slowly. My hand hesitated above the door. One knock, then another. Footsteps. Slow, careful. The door opened only a few inches. An older woman leaned on a wooden cane. Her silver hair caught the porch light. She looked tired, smaller, older than I remembered. Then her eyes found mine. The cane slipped from her hand and crashed onto the floor. Her lips trembled. Tears filled her eyes before either of us moved. A whisper escaped between broken breaths. "If you're standing here." She covered her mouth. "Then who has been living your life?" My mother's hands refused to let go of mine. She kept touching my face as if I might disappear again the moment she blinked. "No one told me," she whispered. "They told me you were gone." The words stayed between us while tears rolled down her cheeks. I stepped inside the house I had grown up in. Nothing had changed. The old clock still ticked above the fireplace. My childhood photos still cover the hallway. The smell of fresh bread drifted from the kitchen. Everything felt warm. Everything except the empty place inside me. Mom noticed the suitcase still in my hand. "You didn't go home." A quiet smile almost reached my lips. I did. Her expression changed before I finished. I just didn't stay. She didn't ask another question. She already knew. The pain on my face had answered everything. She led me to the kitchen and poured coffee into my favorite mug. Steam rose between us. Neither of us reached for it. After a long moment, she opened a small wooden box sitting on the table. Inside were dozens of envelopes. Every one carried my handwriting. I picked up the first letter. The postal stamp showed a date from nearly 4 years earlier. Across the front, thick black ink covered the corner. Return to sender. Another envelope. The same words. Then another. Then another. I kept every one, Mom murmured. I couldn't throw them away. My fingers brushed across the paper. I wrote every month. I know. I never stopped. I know. The room felt smaller with every envelope. I thought Olivia was reading them. Mom lowered her eyes. So did I. She stood and walked toward an old cabinet. After searching through several folders, she placed a government envelope in front of me. Read this. The paper already looked familiar before I opened it. Military seal. Official language. Cold words. My eyes stopped on one sentence. Status. Missing. Presumed dead. The date underneath made my stomach twist. Only 8 months after the attack. 8 months. I remembered that mission. Chaos. Smoke. A collapsed building. Our communication equipment destroyed. Half the units separated. It had taken weeks before rescue teams reached us. Then months of recovery before contact became possible. I looked back at the document. They declared me dead before anyone even confirmed it. Mom nodded slowly. The officer who visited us said there was almost no chance anyone survived. I survived. I never stopped believing that. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Olivia believed it too. My eyes lifted. What do you mean? Mom took a slow breath. She came here almost every day during the first year. That surprised me. Every day. Sometimes twice. I stayed quiet. She cried more than she spoke. She kept asking if I had heard anything. Another piece of my anger cracked. Mom continued softly. Every military office, every hospital, every phone number she could find. My fingers tightened around the document. She searched for me. She did. The room became painfully quiet. Then Mom opened another folder. Photos. Olivia sitting outside a military office. Olivia holding missing person flyers. Olivia standing beside my picture during a Veterans Memorial event. None of those moments had reached me. Not one. How long? Mom answered without hesitation. Almost 2 years. My heart became heavier instead of lighter. 2 years. She had waited. She had fought. She had hoped. Then what changed? Mom leaned back in her chair. Her parents. I didn't need more explanation. I remembered Richard and Helen Carter well. Status mattered to them. Business mattered. Appearances mattered. Everything came with conditions. You know how they are. I nodded. They kept telling her to move forward. They told her a widow deserved another chance. The word widow hit harder than expected. Widow, even while breathing somewhere across the ocean. Someone had already buried me. Mom rubbed her forehead. They invited wealthy families over almost every weekend. Nathan. She nodded again. He appeared around that time. Images from the gala returned instantly. The expensive suit. The confident smile, his hand resting comfortably around Olivia's waist. What kind of man is he? Wealthy. I noticed. He invested in your father-in-law's company. That caught my attention. When? About 3 years ago. So after I disappeared. Yes. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Pieces slowly connected. Not enough, but enough to leave questions. The front door suddenly opened. Heavy footsteps crossed the hallway. Ethan, the familiar voice almost made me smile. Lucas. Before I even stood, he was already pulling me into a crushing hug. I knew it. His laugh broke halfway through. I knew you stubborn idiot wouldn't die. The hug lasted longer than either of us expected. Finally, he stepped back and punched my shoulder. You still ugly. And you're still loud. He laughed. Mom wiped away another tear. I'll make dinner. Lucas waited until she left the room. Then his smile disappeared. You've seen Olivia. I have. I heard about the gala. News traveled fast. I didn't introduce myself. He studied me carefully. Good. That answer surprised me. You think I should hide? I think you should understand what's happening before walking into another disaster. He reached into his backpack and placed a thick military file on the table. I requested your records this morning. I opened the folder. Mission reports. Medical updates. Transfer records. Communication logs. One page immediately stood out. Outgoing family notification. Status update. Delivery confirmation. Missing. Another update. Missing. Another. Missing. Lucas frowned. See the pattern? They never arrived. Exactly. My eyes moved through every page. Several official notices had been sent. None had reached my family. That's impossible. I thought so too. He pulled another sheet from the folder. The military kept updating your status. My heartbeat quickened. Alive. Critical condition. Another page. Recovering. Another. Transferred. Then, finally, returning home. Every notice had been processed. Every notice had disappeared. Someone had stopped them. Lucas folded his arms. This isn't an accident. I stared at the papers spread across the table. If Olivia never received these, then she believed you were dead. I closed my eyes. The anger inside me shifted. Not gone, just different. She hadn't abandoned me immediately. She had been abandoned by the truth. Still, 5 years had ended with another man wearing my place. Understanding someone's pain didn't erase my own. Mom called us to dinner. The dining table looked exactly as I remembered. 3 plates, 3 chairs, 1 empty seat across from mine. Dad's chair. No one had touched it since his funeral. Mom noticed me staring. Some places shouldn't be replaced. Her quiet words lingered in my mind. Some places shouldn't be replaced. After dinner, I carried my suitcase upstairs. My old bedroom still smelled like fresh paint and old books. I reached into my pocket. The wedding ring rested in my hand again. This tiny piece of gold had crossed battlefields with me. It had survived explosions, rain, snow, blood, hope. Slowly, I opened the bedside drawer. The wood creaked softly. I placed the ring inside. Then I closed the drawer. I won't beg to be chosen. The promise wasn't made to Olivia. It was made to myself. Morning sunlight reached across the room before Lucas knocked on my door. You need to see this. His voice sounded different, calmer, more serious. He laid another document on the bed. Bank records, legal paperwork, highlighted dates. One payment caught my attention. Private legal consultation. Expedited declaration process. Funded by Nathan Brooks. The date froze my thoughts. Nearly a full year before the legal deadline for declaring me dead. Lucas slowly slid one more page toward me. He paid for lawyers. My eyes stayed locked on the signature. He pushed the process forward. A cold feeling settled over me. This was no longer about bad luck. Someone hadn't just accepted my death. Someone had invested in it. The easiest thing I could have done was walk into Olivia's office and demand answers. The hardest thing was doing nothing. So I chose the harder path. Every morning, I reminded myself of one simple truth. A man who has to fight for a place in someone's heart has already lost. Lucas arrived at my mother's house with a folder tucked under his arm. You've spent enough time hiding. I'm not hiding. A small grin crossed his face. Then it's time to start living. He placed a business card on the table. A private security company. They specialized in protecting hospitals, office buildings, and corporate events. They need someone with your experience. I've been away for 5 years. They need discipline, not perfect memories. I turned the card over in my hand. You already recommended me. His smile grew wider. I knew you'd make excuses if I didn't. A quiet laugh escaped before I could stop it. It was the first real laugh that had reached my lips since coming home. You're impossible, and you're hired if you stop acting stubborn. 3 days later, I walked into the company's office. No one greeted me as a broken soldier. No one looked at me with pity. The manager shook my hand firmly. Welcome aboard, Sergeant Carter. Those 3 words carried more respect than anything I had heard at the charity gala. My shoulders straightened without thinking. I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to see me instead of my pain. The work came naturally. Security plans, risk assessments, training younger guards. Long hours kept my mind busy. The nights still belonged to old memories, but the mornings slowly became easier to face. Life was moving again. Not quickly, just enough to remind me it hadn't ended. Rumors began spreading across town a week later. Lucas called during lunch. You've become interesting. I hope that's good news. Depends who you ask. He leaned closer to the phone. Someone at the military records office reopened your file. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. So people know I'm alive? Not officially, but they're talking. That afternoon, another call arrived. Mom sounded nervous. Olivia came by. The room around me seemed quieter. What did she want? She asked strange questions. What kind? Whether anyone had contacted me from the military recently. My heartbeat stayed calm, and I told her the truth. You didn't tell her I'm here. I promised I wouldn't. Relief settled over me. Thank you. After ending the call, I stared through the office window. The rumors had reached her. Good. Truth always found a way to breathe. Across town, someone else was becoming restless. Lucas met me after work with fresh documents. Nathan has been visiting lawyers almost every day. Scared. He should be. What changed? Lucas slid a newspaper across the table. A tiny article filled one corner. Military Records Review reopens missing soldier case. No names, no details, just enough to make the wrong people nervous. For the first time since returning home, I wasn't the one chasing answers. Someone else had started chasing me. A few weeks later, our company partnered with the local veterans hospital. They needed volunteers to help recovering soldiers adjust to civilian life. The moment I stepped inside, familiar smells rushed back. Medicine, fresh coffee, clean sheets, hope mixed with pain. A young woman carrying several medical files nearly walked into me. Oh, she stepped back quickly. My fault. The folders almost slipped from her hands. I caught them before they hit the floor. Careful. A warm smile appeared. Thank you. Her volunteer badge read, Emma Collins. She noticed the military tattoo on my wrist. You served? I nodded. A long time. Her smile became softer. My father was a veteran. Something in her voice carried quiet respect. Not curiosity, not sympathy. Respect. I know these halls can be difficult. I've walked harder ones. She smiled again. I believe you. Days turned into weeks. Emma never pushed for personal answers. She never asked about nightmares. Never asked how many battles I survived. Instead, coffee. Sure. You skipped lunch again. I was busy. Busy people still need sandwiches. Little moments. Simple conversations. Normal life. One afternoon, she handed me a volunteer badge. You've earned this. The plastic card felt surprisingly meaningful. Not because it carried my name, because it reminded me I still had something to give. Helping injured soldiers became the best part of every week. Sometimes all they needed was someone who understood without asking questions. One young recruit stared out the hospital window. Does it ever stop hurting? I sat beside him. The pain changes. He turned toward me. It changes. It stops controlling you. He nodded slowly. Maybe those words were meant for both of us. Meanwhile, another life was beginning to crack. Lucas kept updating me. Olivia removed your wedding photo from her office. I looked up. Why now? No idea. He shrugged. Maybe seeing it hurt too much. A strange feeling settled inside me. She had hidden my memory for years. Now she couldn't bear looking at it. The next update came 2 days later. Nathan deleted your contact from Olivia's old phone. How do you know that? Her assistant mentioned it. I frowned. He deleted it himself? Lucas nodded. Seems he doesn't like ghosts. He was right. Ghosts had a habit of returning. One rainy afternoon, Emma convinced me to leave the hospital for lunch. You work too much. So I've been told. She laughed. You smile more than you realize. I hadn't noticed. Maybe because the smile wasn't forced anymore. We crossed the hospital parking lot carrying paper coffee cups. Rain tapped gently against the umbrellas. Emma pointed toward a bakery across the street. The cinnamon rolls there are amazing. My wife loved. The sentence stopped by itself. Emma didn't rush to fill the silence. She simply waited. After a moment, I smiled faintly. I used to buy them every Sunday. She nodded. Some memories deserve to stay. Others don't. No pressure. No awkward questions. Just understanding. As we reached the bakery entrance, movement across the street caught my attention. A black luxury car had stopped beside the curb. The passenger door opened. Olivia stepped out. Time seemed to slow. She wasn't dressed for a business meeting. Simple jeans, white sweater, no cameras, no audience, only surprise spreading across her face. Her eyes found me immediately. Then they moved toward Emma. Our coffee cups, our quiet smiles, the volunteer badge hanging around my neck. She froze. The color slowly drained from her face. Emma followed my gaze. You know her? For several seconds, no words came. Finally, I answered. I used to. Olivia took one uncertain step forward. Then another. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. She wasn't seeing the man who had begged for love. She was seeing someone she no longer understood. Someone standing beside another woman. Someone smiling. Someone living. My silence had become louder than any accusation. Emma gently touched my arm. "We can go inside." I nodded. Before turning away, my eyes met Olivia's one last time. She reached into her purse with trembling fingers. Something slipped free. A small gold ring. Our wedding ring. It struck the pavement with a soft metallic sound. Neither of us moved. She stared at it. I stared at her. 5 years of love rested between us on cold concrete. Neither of us reached down to pick it up. The wedding ring stayed on the pavement between us. Neither of us bent down to pick it up. Rain landed softly on the gold, making it shine brighter than it had in years. "Ethan." My name barely escaped Olivia's lips. It sounded fragile, almost afraid. Emma quietly stepped back. "I'll wait inside." She gave me a gentle nod before disappearing into the bakery. Now, there was nothing left to hide behind. Only two people standing in front of 5 years of broken promises. Olivia took another careful step. I thought. The words stopped. Her hands trembled as she searched my face. "I thought you were dead." "I know." That answer surprised her. "You know, my mother told me how long you searched." Fresh tears gathered in her eyes. "I never stopped loving you." The sentence hung in the cold air. I glanced at the ring still lying between us. Love doesn't disappear because someone dies. She lowered her head. It doesn't. But people can still choose someone else. A painful breath escaped her. I was alone. I understand. My parents kept telling me to move forward. I understand. Nathan. Her voice broke again. He made everything feel stable. My fingers slipped into my coat pockets. I understand that too. She stared at me with confusion. "Then why are you so far away?" A faint smile crossed my face. "Because understanding isn't the same as forgetting." The answer left no room for hope. She covered her mouth to stop herself from crying. I wanted one chance to explain. "You have, and nothing changes." The silence that followed carried more weight than any argument. A car horn echoed somewhere behind us. Life continued around us. Mine had already moved in a different direction. I nodded once toward the ring. "You should keep it." She shook her head immediately. "It belongs to us." It belonged to us. One word. Past tense. She closed her eyes. By the time I turned toward the bakery, she still hadn't moved. The ring remained on the ground, exactly where our marriage had ended. 3 days later, Lucas arrived at my office carrying a laptop and a thick stack of folders. His face told me everything before he spoke. "We found him." "Nathan." He nodded. "And much more." We closed the office door. Every document spread across the conference table like pieces of a puzzle. Bank transfers, military records, court filings, private emails. One by one, the missing years finally began making sense. Lucas pointed toward a highlighted signature. This official worked inside the military record department. I studied the name. "I've never seen him." "You wouldn't." He intercepted updates. Every one that mattered. Lucas opened another file. Payment records appeared on the screen. Large deposits, hidden accounts, offshore transfers. Every payment led back to Nathan. He paid for information. He paid to delay it. He paid to hide it. Each sentence landed harder than the last. Lucas placed one final document in front of me. An expedited legal request. Application to declare me deceased. The date made my jaw tighten. They filed this nearly a year before the normal waiting period. I stared at Nathan's signature. He couldn't wait. "No." Lucas leaned forward. "He needed you gone." "Why?" He slid another folder across the table. Business merger contracts, investment agreements, family trust documents. "If Olivia remained legally married to you." He tapped one paragraph. Her family couldn't finalize this partnership. Everything suddenly connected. Money, power, control. Nathan hadn't fallen in love with a lonely widow. He had invested in becoming one. The Carter Corporation announced a major board meeting later that week. Investors, lawyers, executives, family members. Everyone would be there. Lucas closed his laptop. "This is the perfect moment. You've already contacted the investigators. They'll arrive with the evidence." I looked out the office window. "So this ends today?" "No." Lucas stood beside me. This begins today. The boardroom looked almost identical to the ballroom where my old life had ended. Expensive suits, confident smiles, crystal glasses. The same people who had applauded another man standing beside my wife. Only this time, I wasn't standing outside. The meeting had barely started when the conference room doors opened. Two government investigators walked inside. Every conversation stopped. One of them placed a sealed folder on the table. We're conducting an official investigation regarding financial fraud, document tampering, and obstruction of military communications. Nathan's smile disappeared. There must be some mistake. The lead investigator calmly connected a laptop to the projector. The screen lit up. Bank records appeared. Dates, payments, names, no opinions, only facts. The room grew quieter with every slide. Nathan shifted in his chair. I can explain. Another document replaced the first. Intercepted military updates. Official delivery logs. Every notification marked as redirected. Every report leading to the same corrupt official. Then came the legal paperwork. The investigator lifted the signed document. This application requested an early declaration of Sergeant Ethan Carter's death. He paused. It was privately funded. Another page appeared. Nathan Brooks. Signature. Bank transfer. Authorization. No one breathed. Richard Carter slowly turned toward Nathan. You told us the military requested this. Nathan's confidence cracked. They recommended it. The investigator shook his head. That statement is false. Another email appeared. Private messages. Hidden conversations. Discussions about speeding up the legal process before investment negotiations. Olivia stared at the screen without blinking. Her face became completely pale. She wasn't looking at numbers anymore. She was watching 5 years of lies unfold in front of everyone. Nathan stood suddenly. This isn't what it looks like. The projector displayed one final document. Our wedding certificate, still legally valid when Nathan first approached Olivia. The investigator spoke quietly. You knowingly interfered with an active marriage while manipulating government records for financial gain. Nathan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. One of the investors slowly pushed his chair back. Another closed his notebook. A lawyer quietly removed his glasses. No shouting. No dramatic speeches. Only people deciding they no longer wanted to stand beside him. Truth had entered the room. Lies had nowhere left to hide. Nathan's hand shook as he reached toward his left hand. The gold wedding ring slipped off his finger. He stared at it for a long second, then placed it on the polished table. No one stopped him. No one defended him. He walked toward the exit alone. The sound of the closing door echoed through the room. Olivia remained frozen in her chair. Our eyes met across the table. She wasn't searching for excuses anymore. Only answers she could never change. I walked toward her slowly. She stood. I didn't know. I believe you. Fresh tears filled her eyes. I chose the easy road. You chose certainty. I should have waited. I nodded once. You should have. She reached toward my hand, but stopped halfway. The distance between us was no longer measured in steps. It was measured in years. I don't expect forgiveness. That's good. The words hurt both of us. I can't return what was stolen. No, I can't give you those 5 years. No, a quiet breath escaped me. But you can stop letting lies decide the rest of your life. She nodded through tears. I will. I turned and walked away. Not because I hated her, because there was nothing left to hold. That evening, I stopped outside the old house we once shared. The lights were off. The curtains were open. Through the front window, I saw Olivia sitting alone on the living room floor. An old photo album rested in her lap. One picture had slipped onto the carpet. Our wedding day. She carefully picked it up with both hands. Then she slowly lowered herself to her knees. Her fingers brushed across my smiling face in the photograph. A broken whisper reached me through the half-open window. I kept waiting for forgiveness. Another tear landed on the faded picture. But I never earned another chance. Some victories never sound like cheering. They sound like a judge closing a file, a prison door locking, a pen signing the last page. 3 months passed before the investigation finally ended. Nathan stood in a courtroom wearing a gray suit instead of expensive confidence. The man who once believed money could rewrite another person's life now waited for strangers to decide his future. The evidence spoke louder than any excuse. Financial fraud, bribery, interference with military records, conspiracy. Every lie he had built collapsed beneath official documents. When a sentence was announced, he didn't look toward the judge. He looked toward the empty seats behind him. No family, no business partners, no friends. Power had left him long before freedom did. The corrupt official who accepted Nathan's money lost his position. Several lawyers who knowingly ignored suspicious paperwork lost their licenses. The investigation reached people who believed the truth would stay buried forever. It didn't. Truth rarely arrives in a hurry, but it always arrives. My own life had become quieter. The security company promoted me to lead consultant. The Veterans Hospital continued asking me to volunteer every weekend. Some mornings started with paperwork. Others started with helping a young soldier take his first steps after surgery. Those moments reminded me why I survived. Not to live inside old pain, to help someone else survive theirs. One afternoon, a large envelope arrived at my office. My name was written across the front in careful handwriting. I already knew who had sent it. Inside rested divorce papers. Every page had already been signed. Olivia hadn't left a letter. No emotional speech. No request to meet. No desperate promise. Only one handwritten sentence rested beneath the final signature. Thank you for loving me longer than I deserved. I read those words twice. Then I quietly signed my name. The marriage officially ended with the same calm silence that had once begun it. No courtroom, no argument, no final fight. Some endings don't need another wound. A week later, Mom placed a newspaper beside my breakfast. I recognized Olivia immediately. Not because she smiled, because she didn't. The article explained that she had donated a large part of her inheritance to organizations supporting veterans and military families. She wasn't standing in front of cameras during the ceremony. The photographer had captured her walking away instead. No interviews, no speeches, no attempt to repair her image. She had finally stopped asking the world to forgive her. She simply accepted what she had done. Mom folded the newspaper. People can change. I nodded slowly. They can. She studied my face. Does it change anything? I looked toward the window, where morning sunlight filled the yard. No. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I didn't think it would. A few days later, I drove to the house that had once been my home. The real estate sign stood near the sidewalk. The property had already been sold. One last visit. Nothing more. Olivia opened the front door before I knocked. She looked thinner than I remembered. Not weak, just tired. She stepped aside quietly. It's empty. I walked inside. The silence felt different now. Not painful, only distant. Most of the furniture was gone. The walls carried lighter squares where photographs had once hung. Our laughter had disappeared long before the pictures did. I wandered upstairs. Our bedroom door stood open. The closet was empty. Only a few wooden hangers remained, gently moving beneath the air conditioner. I remembered filling that closet together after our wedding. Now it held nothing except dust and memories. Olivia remained near the doorway. I packed everything months ago. I nodded. I can see that. She didn't follow me. She understood some journeys had to be walked alone. Inside another closet, I noticed a small wrapped package resting on the highest shelf. The handwriting stopped me cold. My own name, my own writing. I carefully climbed onto a chair and lifted it down. The faded shipping label read, "Happy 5th anniversary." The gift I had mailed from overseas. One of the packages returned to me. Only this one hadn't. Olivia noticed my confusion. It arrived after. Her voice became unsteady. After they declared you dead. She looked at the floor. I couldn't open it. I slowly removed the old wrapping paper. Inside rested a snow globe. Tiny white flakes drifted around a small wooden cabin, the same one we once dreamed of renting every winter. A folded card slipped into my hand. I recognized every word before reading them. No matter how far I go, every road still leads home to you. The younger version of me had believed that with all his heart. I gently closed the card. Keep it. Olivia looked surprised. It belongs to you. It belongs to someone who still needs forgiveness. She carefully accepted the snow globe with both hands. Neither of us spoke again. Words had already done everything they could. At the front door, she quietly held out one final document, the official divorce certificate. I folded it once and slipped it into my jacket. Take care of yourself. A faint smile touched her lips. You too. The door closed gently behind me. No anger. No dramatic goodbye. Only two people accepting that love alone could not erase everything that happened. Life continued moving. So did I. Emma became part of that new life, one quiet day at a time. She never tried to replace my past. She never competed with old memories. Instead, you've been working all morning. She placed a coffee cup beside me. Come outside for 5 minutes. Another afternoon. The sunset is beautiful. I glanced toward the sky. It is. You almost missed it. Little moments slowly became meaningful ones. She never asked me to forget. She simply reminded me there was still something worth remembering. Hope. Several months later, we walked along the same beach where Olivia and I had once promised to grow old together. The ocean hadn't changed. The waves still reached the shore with steady patience. Emma noticed me staring into the distance. I'll wait over there. She pointed toward a small pier. No rush. She understood without another word. I reached into my pocket. The old wedding ring rested in my palm. It had crossed battlefields, hospitals, courtrooms, broken promises. It had carried more memories than a simple piece of gold should ever hold. I crouched near the water. For a moment, I simply listened to the waves. Not every memory deserves to be carried forever. Some deserve to be honored, then released. I kissed the ring once. Not because I still belonged to the past, because the man who wore it had loved honestly. There was nothing shameful about that. My hand opened. The ring slipped into the water. Small waves carried it farther from ashore. I watched until it disappeared beneath the sunlight. Emma slowly walked back toward me. You ready? A peaceful smile reached my face. Yeah. We started walking together. This time I didn't turn around. The ocean kept the ring. The past kept its memories. I kept myself. As the waves carried my old wedding ring away, I smiled without looking back. Some wars end on the battlefield. Mine ended the day I chose myself.